friend Brett lives in LA, so I took the chief right across back to visit with Brett for a day before I headed back home to the Great Northwest. To Canada. And then he said, so John, he said, so Dwendy, you seem so like uptight, what's up? And I said, what's uptight? I tend to be dramatic. Is that I am going around helping or doing all this stuff, and all these native people are saying, go here, go that, you should do this, you should do that. Do I see any of them in the front of my lawn? No, 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 no. Do I see anybody else sticking their neck out? No, 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 no. I don't see any of that. Okay, well, there was John Buck. And John Buck was walking around putting these keys of Enoch into... Have you ever read that book? It's called The Keys of Enoch. And it was not out of the Bible. It's just a book that was written recently about putting these titanium copper conductors, like a foot or so into the ground, to create a big white bird. And that's what John was doing in Sedona, was putting in one of these conductors so the big white bird could come. And there I was, the big white bird, and I met John Buck, and there we were together. Okay, it's just like the synchronicity on that is just completely outrageous. And I turned to my friend and I said, here I am, and the only person I ever see is another lost white Aboriginal. And do I see anybody else? No, 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 no. So I went on a rant. He said, are you done? I said, yeah. Do you feel better? I said, yeah. So the next day, he drops me off on the train. I get onto the train, and there's this really pretty girl on the train. And being male, I turn and go, ooh. And I think, oh, stop it now. Everybody on the train's doing that. So this train is full. The Midnight Express, headed to Seattle, is full. Except for a seat beside me. I have the only empty seat on the train. And I start talking to this family, and we've been traveling for about half an hour, maybe 45 minutes, and they find out that I'm clairvoyant. I'm sure I tell them. I tell everybody. And then, but I don't say, hey, my name's John Conway, I'm clairvoyant. It comes a little after that. So I'm telling the mom all sorts of things, and then this pretty girl shows up, and she's Australian. She says, may I have your seat? And I said, well, here's one beside me if you want it. Is it taken? No. She sits down, and then the mom keeps talking to me, and she says, well, if I give you my hands, she says, what do you see? And I said, well, let me see. And I say 10 different things, and on the last one I said, oh, and when you get home, you haven't told the kids yet, but you're moving. And the kids look at her, and she says, I'm sorry, I was going to tell you when we got home. But yeah, we're moving. And then the little boy jumps on the back of his seat and says, what do you see in me? And I grab his hands. And a voice in my head says, don't say anything. And I see whole bunches of things for this young man. And if you're listening, if you see this, I saw huge things that day. Huge. You're going to be huge, buddy. Like clairvoyant huge, and doing some of the stuff I am, just to let you know. Anyway, the young boy said, what do you see? And I turned and I looked at him and I said, I don't see anything. He said, you're lying. I said, yes, I am. Because a voice said in my head that I couldn't tell him I wanted to so badly. But you have to sometimes follow that voice, more times than not, because they're usually right. I hate that sometimes. And so I had to follow the voice. And he said, well, what did you see? I said, I didn't see anything. He said, you're lying. I went, you're right. I am lying. So I think he knew. And then his mom said, come on, don't bother Dwende. And then the girl beside me says, well, what do you see in me? And I hold her hands, and for a minute, and then she goes, what are you doing to me? I said, I don't know, I don't know how this stuff works sometimes. I'm new at it, so I don't know. And I said, well, can you explain what's going on? She said, well, my hips are on fire, my chest is on fire, my hands are on fire. She said, what have you done? I said, well, I'm not entirely sure. He said, okay, I'm going to tell you something really wild, something really bizarre. I said, okay, go ahead. No, it's really outrageous. I said, listen, my father is a UFO researcher. I have met and heard about the Queen of Venus. I do not think anything you're going to say could be more outrageous than that. I said, okay. She says, don't laugh. But I think I'm this huge white bird. Oh, I said. How big? She said about 9 feet by 5 feet or 10 feet by 5 feet. Oh. Now I'm going to tell you what color. She said, oh, she did. She said, I'm this huge white bird. I said, yeah, you told me. She said, I'm a white bird. I don't understand. She said, you think that's crazy. I said, no. I said, I've got a huge white bird, 10 feet by 5 feet, down in the cabin in the luggage compartment. And for 18 hours, I tell her everything I know about the huge white bird. Everything. And then in Seattle, I say goodbye. And then I go home. And then everything's quiet. And then 6 months later, I'm lying in bed, and the white bird comes to wake me up.